Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let's get right to the presentation here. Granite Creek Copper, a fairly new company, launched in January of 2019. It's a member of the metallic group of companies, which includes Metallic Minerals, which is focused on high-grade silver in the Keno district of the Yukon, Group 10 Metals, which is PGEs plus nickel and copper in Montana, and Granite Creek. We are focused on high-grade copper, gold, and silver in the Minto Carmacks district of Yukon. All three companies have a very similar approach to business, and that is to acquire large brownfields land packages in the bottom of the metal cycle, and then use modern exploration techniques to advance those and create long-term shareholder value. Each of the three companies was able to do this starting in 2016 and have put together land packages that normally wouldn't be available just because of the price of the metal and because of the district that we were in. All three companies have land packages that are adjacent to infrastructure and are developing those towards resources. Granite Creek's short-term goal is to delineate a minimum 1 billion pounds of contained copper. Now, why we use a billion-pound metric is that we know, talking to majors, that quite often is the entry point to a major coming into a district, to see that there's a billion pounds plus potential for more. So we want to start with that billion pounds and then show that not only do we have that, but we can grow that beyond there. Very good infrastructure, located in the central Yukon. The project, the Carmacks and Carmacks North project, is within 20 kilometers of grid power and paved highway. That paved highway leads through the village of Carmacks, down through the capital of the Yukon at Whitehorse, and ultimately to the deepwater port at Skagway, Alaska. We do have 177 square kilometers of the high-grade Minto belt, when we are with roughly 35 kilometers south of the producing Minto mine. Our Carmacks copper resource, which we acquired by acquiring Copper North, we closed that transaction November of 2020. The resource itself is just under 24 million tons measured and indicated, of 0.85% copper, 0.31 grams gold, and 3.4 grams silver. This equates to roughly 1.3% on a copper equivalent basis, giving us just over 440 million pounds contained copper. So if you look at our short-term goal of 1 billion pounds, we're almost already halfway there. Now, 2/3 of that is in the form of oxide copper and 1/3 is sulfide, but we see the real potential of the deposit is the underlying sulfide. We think it could be 2 to 3 times larger than the oxide, and that's where our focus is going to be for resource expansion. There was a PEA completed on the deposit in 2017 on the oxide portion only, resulting in an NPV of just over $160 million. But if we look at current metal prices, what we've seen metal prices for the gold and copper for the trailing 6 months, we see that the NPV is over $200 million. So that, again, is on the oxide portion only, and we expect to be able to grow the oxide, but also be able to significantly grow the sulfide in coming exploration programs. So how we're going to be able to grow that? Well, the deposit, the Carmacks deposit itself, is contained within the purple oval in the middle bottom portion of the screen. That's where all those resources are. And we see several high priority targets to be able to grow resources, both in oxide and sulfide in the Carmacks North portion of the claim block, as well as targeting the underlying sulfide potential in the Carmacks deposit, specifically in zones 12 and 13, where we see significant potential. Looking at a typical section through the northern part of the Carmacks deposit, we can see the drill holes that targeted the oxide were quite good grade, up to 2.2% copper, 0.4 grams gold, and 4 grams silver. This is copper equivalent of almost 3% for that diamond drill hole 1-18. But we can also see that very little drilling has been done in the sulfide portion of the potential. And we see this not only in the narrow portion in the north, but in some of the wider portions of the deposit, especially when we get down to zone 13. So again, very limited drilling in the sulfide, and that's what we see the greatest potential. We did drill zone 13 in November of 2020. Assays is still pending. Well, we were offsetting some long intercepts of mineralization, not quite as high grade as the stuff in the northern part of the deposit, but still pretty good. 0.67 over 100 meters with good gold and silver credits. We think is very compelling, and we offset that with our CRM 2001 and CRM 2002. Again, assays pending. We expect assays for this in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we'll be publishing those as soon as we can compile them. We also drilled in the north part of our claim block in Zone A. This has previously been drilled in the 1980s by previous operators. And they hit some pretty good intercepts of 2.5% copper over 20 meters with very good gold grades as well. We believe this is mostly oxide material that we could add to the oxide portion at Carmacks. Again, assays pending. We offset some of this high grade with 3 drill holes. We thought the mineralization probably had a slightly different trend to it than what the previous operators had seen. And it was a proof of concept to see if we could prove up that trend. We've got good coverage of both geochem and geophysics for the majority of the claim block. Most of this data was compiled from historic work done by previous operators, including a magnetic survey that was flown in 2008 that had never been released to the public. So we were able to acquire and compile all this data and be able to make the correlation between the geophysics and the geochemist in the soil, and be able to put the historic drilling into context and develop targets for our upcoming field program. Just a little bit on the mineralization and the geology of the Minto copper belt itself. There's been much debate over the years about the genesis of the mineralization. Current theory that seems to be holding up quite well with the data that we've seen is that this was a porphyry system, but instead of the porphyry system being emplaced into a volcanic or sedimentary setting where there would be more opportunity to deposit mineralization, it was emplaced into metamorphic rock that was quite constrained. So instead of it being a broad, wide deposit, it's a much narrow, high-grade deposit. So what you get is narrow, mineralized, high-grade pods of mineralization that stretch from the Carmacks deposit in the south of the belt through Carmacks North, all the way up to and past the Minto mine. These can be quite high-grade. They can be up to 3 to 4% copper in places. But they're discontinuous, and that's what the opportunity was. We recognize that even though they're discontinuous, they do repeat themselves. They repeat themselves along strike, and they repeat themselves at depth. So now with that new understanding, we're able to target these high-grade pods and put them together to make up the tonnage that we're going to require. Just a little bit about the Minto mine. Again, roughly 35 kilometers north of us. Currently 4,000 ton per day mill. In last quarter of 2020, that was running at 50% capacity. I expect them to be able to get this up to full capacity in first quarter of this year. Their reserve grade is pretty good, 1.7% copper, 0.6 gold. They are mining underground right now. So if there was an opportunity for us to work with them and we could get material that could be mined in an open pit setting, there may be some cost savings there. And they have a streaming agreement with Wheaton Precious Metals for the precious metals in their deposit. Any material that we found, of course, wouldn't necessarily attract that stream. So I guess the takeaway here is that there's an underutilized mill in the district within trucking distance of the center of our project. We really like working in the Yukon. It's a great place to work, ranked very high by several ranking agencies. Investment by the territorial and federal governments continue, including road upgrades that directly affect our project. And we see the majors like Anico, Newmont, and Teck continuing to spend in the Yukon. And that's just good for anybody working there. The Minto belt itself is home to some of the highest grade in Western Canada. In fact, when Minto was open pit, they started as open pit. They were one of the highest open pit mines in the world. Low tonnage, but really good grade. Minto itself is just under 2% on a copper equivalent basis. And then our Carmacks deposit is just under 1.3. Again, that's the oxide portion, but the sulfide grade holds up really well. If you look at our market cap, the Granite Creek market cap, we're fairly low compared to our peers. We didn't quite see the growth that some of our peers saw as copper prices increased since May 2020. So we've got room to grow just based on the copper price alone. But we also think as people start to recognize the potential that we have with the Carmacks deposit and our expansion potential, that we're going to see some pretty good growth in the company. So what we've done and where we're going. Again, the company is fairly new, launched in January 2019. And within 24 months, we were able to go from an early stage exploration play to a resource company. And we're developing aggressive campaign to grow those resources. We will be doing a financing in the coming weeks in order to fund a 8,000 to 10,000 meter drill program for 2021. We've got drill results from our 2020 program to be released in the coming weeks. We are uplisting to the OTC QB for our OTC market followers. And we are reprocessing not only the historic data, but the some reassaying of historic core that we did last year. Just a little bit on the team. Because we're a member of a group of companies, we share a lot of resources across the other three companies. Each company has its own dedicated board of directors and dedicated CEO, but we share CFO, we share corporate communications officer, and we also share a lot of our back office expenditures, so that keeps costs low. I've got over 25 years experience in the business, and the other two CEOs of other companies have even more than that. And on events like this, we try to cross-pollinate and introduce all three companies to the market. We borrow our exploration team. A lot of the members on our exploration team are former Nova Gold. The chair of the company, Greg Johnson, was one of the founders of Nova Gold, and he brings a lot of experience with him. And then a lot of our Yukon geologists worked almost their entire careers in the Yukon to some degree. And again, we share resources with the other two companies that are working in the Yukon. Strong track record of success within the group. Again, the chair of the group, Greg Johnson, was one of the former founders of Nova Gold, which was responsible for the development of Donlin and Galore Creek. Showing the potential to find under-recognized resources and significantly grow them, and we've got the team in place to do that. We've added one project to the company since 2016, one project to the group, including the Keno Hill in 2016, Stillwater in 2017, Carmacks in 2018, which actually closed 2019, and then La Plata in 2019. We see the fundamentals for copper being extremely strong. As the world shifts to a really electric economy where we move off of fossil fuels and we electrify the global transportation fleet and we move to renewables and the storing of electricity, that's just good for copper in many, many ways. So there is going to be moving into the latter part of the 2020s, phenomenal new supply required, and there's really not many near-term copper projects to be able to supply that, and we believe we have one of them. Relative valuation across commodities and the market in general. We see a major commodity bull market just starting right now as we look to commodities versus the general market. Very good place to be. A little bit on the capital structure of the company. 96 million shares out, traded recently as high as 22 cents. We've got roughly $21 million market cap, just under $1.5 million in the bank. And again, we'll be doing a financing in order to fund our 2021 resource expansion drill program. And that's all for me, and I'm willing or available to take questions.
Thank you, Tim. So let's get right to it. So this question from Yinze Yu, and he's asking, so how's the Yukon government doing specifically, or any kind of support, infrastructure, or other kinds of support there for the mining of copper?
Yeah, so the Yukon government is very supportive of the industry. Lots of initiatives at events, the big events where we go to raise money and be introduced to investors. You typically have either the Minister of Mines or the Premier speaking. There's lots of incentives that the Yukon government has for exploration. So we're very pleased to be working with the government on lots of additional initiatives, including the Yukon Mining Alliance, which is an alliance of about 22 Yukon exploration companies that is partially funded by the Yukon government.
This one's from Keen. So what news or milestones can investors expect this year?
Okay, so we do have assay results out from our 2020 drill program, our assay results to come out from our 2020 drill program. We're expecting those in the coming weeks. And then we will be on the back of that announcing a financing to raise money for a resource expansion drill program that we expect to be able to publish the results of that resource expansion in the fall. So there'll be a few news releases and milestones hit in the spring, and then the big ones on a significant resource expansion, hopefully in the fall of 2021.
Oh, in time for me to throw one last question from Chris K here. Any other copper project that is active in the same Minto copper belt right now?
Well, yeah, so the Minto mine itself is a producing mine. It was put back into production in October of 2019 after being on care and maintenance for about 6 months. They're actively shipping concentrate through to the port of Skagway to their offtake with Sumitomo.
Okay, thank you, Tim, for your time and sharing your copper story with us here.
Thank you very much.